think that definitely having a background in project management helped me understand some of the challenges that the project managers or the producers were coming across, and also like really being able to empathize with them.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Galen Low with the Digital Project Manager. We are a community of digital professionals on a mission to help each other get skilled, get confident, and get connected so that we can deliver projects better. If you want to hear more about that, head over to thedigitalprojectmanager.com. Hey everyone, thanks for hanging out with us on the DPM podcast. My guest today is a former digital project manager turned agency operations guru. She's got over a decade of experience keeping large UK agencies running smoothly, and she was once named Employee of the Decade by her team. On the side, she used to make stained glass in a 3x3 shed in her yard, and she's recently given her cat the corner office in her new Vancouver abode. Today, she's going to be sharing some of her best secrets for successfully scheduling team resources across multiple concurrent projects, something that I know a lot of our listeners still have yet to crack the nut on. Folks, please welcome Morgan Megannety.
Hey, Galen. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for coming on the show. Great to have you.
Oh, great to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me in.
We are going to tackle a juicy topic today that people always ask me about. They're always telling me about their headaches and their challenges when it comes to scheduling team resources for multiple concurrent projects, sharing resources, making PMs play friendly, keeping operations running smoothly. It's a puzzle that a lot of people are struggling with. So I'm really excited to dig in. But first of all, I just want to say I've loved our chats recently. I've loved getting to know you. It's been a lot of fun. Cheers. You strike me as someone who's really energized by what you do. And you also simultaneously have what I consider to be a really, really stressful job. Keeping a busy agency running at pretty much breakneck speed is a serious juggling act. And even for folks like me who have a background in digital project management, I think it's a very impressive feat. So I wanted to ask you, where do you get your inspiration from?
Well, I guess probably my inspiration comes from the people that I work with. Maybe seems like a cheesy answer, but an operations job is very much a people job. And, the things that you do as a operations person or resource manager really only work if they help, smooth along the gears of the processes that make I've totally jumbled this up, but I'm so sorry. Can I backtrack?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Do you want me to give you a line again?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, where do you get your inspiration from?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I get my inspiration from the people who I work with. So the thing with ops and resourcing is really it's a kind of like a process creating and enforcing job. And really the processes that you put in place are really only ones that are, going to benefit the people who you work with. So I guess it's listening to them, listening to the type of personalities, what might help them do things better, type of technology that we use, processes that clients might need.
See, you just love your job.
I love my job.
That's where you get your inspiration from. But yeah, definitely about the people. I knew you were going to say that. I love that answer. You've been doing this for a while. And even at the level that you're at, what are some of the things that you're trying to get better at these days?
I don't know if you know about this thing that's been happening the past few months, but there's this pandemic going on.
What?
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. So I guess the biggest thing is, how do you help a studio and a team, feel like a cohesive team without having that physical space to meet with everyone and kind of like be in every single day. So that's a thing that's like a constant challenge, I guess, for everyone the world over right now. Also it's constantly refining how we do things. So like I said earlier, listening to what the team and the clients need and tweaking the processes as we go. Sometimes we'll find that maybe certain way we've been going about something isn't really the most efficient, or doesn't really make sense anymore. So we'll tweak that and change that. So it's it's just always changing things, never staying still.
What are some of your favorite tips for making everyone feel like they're in the same physical space, even if they're not?
Oh, I mean, I love a good Slack channel.
There you go.
I love sharing GIFs with people. Playlists are great. I have a really favorite Christmas one that I recently sent around to everybody. We just basically just like shoot the shit and bant all day whilst also working, and I think that helps. That helps, us kind of like feel like we're all hanging out, even if it's just virtually.
Actually, I mean, GIFs are one of the things that is like an elevation of human interaction. You can't actually do that in person.
Oh gosh, yeah, you're saying GIFs to my GIF. Touché.
I read an article one time about the inventor of the GIF, and then as much as I get admonished by everybody, I'm like, but they meant it as GIF. Yeah. The founder, the creator of it. I'm trying to be faithful.
Yeah, I respect that.
Do you? I don't know if I respect it myself.
Yeah, I do. I do. I'm not going to change, but I will take what you're saying, and I will think about it next time.
I'm gonna flip flop and A/B test it for another year or two and see how it goes.
That's a good idea. Just see what the people want.
Awesome. All right. So let's get into it. Let's talk about scheduling team resources, how you do it, how you stay sane, and what tips and tricks you've picked up over the past 10 years in operations that can help our listeners overcome similar resource allocation headaches and challenges. But first, I thought maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit about professional you, your background as a producer or a project manager, and your shift into operations, stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. So I got a job in a digital agency after being made redundant from a non-digital agency in 2008. Believe over here, being made redundant means being laid off. So during the Great Recession, I found myself without work, but digital places were hiring. So I got a job, and quite quickly, I transitioned from being a kind of like general office person to their first digital project manager. And that was really interesting, and I really liked it. There was work, which was very important to me. And I shortly moved over to a bigger digital agency or a digital department within a fairly large integrated ad agency. And after about 6 months there, I switched into ops as a studio manager. Which was absolutely the right switch for me. And I stayed there for 9 years. And I grew the ops department from being just me as a studio manager to a few years later, I got my first assistant. And then by the time I left earlier this year, there were 4 of us. One person specializing solely in recruitment, a studio manager who covered the day-to-day resourcing, as well as a studio assistant. Because there's lots of admin in an ops role.
Fair enough. Sounds like a great dream team.
It was absolutely amazing. We had lots of big clients, really interesting work. So clients like Cadbury, O2, Kia, Transport for London, EasyJet, etc. And we did a huge range of digital projects. So from kind of standard banners and animations to Alexa apps and games and Instagram type image searching, loads of really cool things. So I absolutely loved working there. I'm from Vancouver. And so I moved back here in the spring, and since the spring, I've been the ops director at a smaller, kind of nimbler studio, still doing some really cool work, less kind of digital specific, but we do a bit of digital stuff. And I'm using the same principles and kind of like processes that were key at a bigger agency. So it's great. It's really cool.
Awesome. I love that, doing a job at different scales. And I mean, talk to me about the transition from project management to ops. Did that sort of make sense for you? You said it was, I mean, it seemed like a pretty seamless transition. Are there some affinities between project management and operations that, is it kind of some of the same language, some of the same skill set?
Yeah, I'd say it's the same. I think that definitely having a background in project management helped me understand some of the challenges that the project managers or the producers were coming across, and also like really being able to empathize with them when they came to me with their resourcing needs and
debacles.
So in all honesty, I found being a project manager really, really hard. I didn't like it. I liked it at a small agency where I think that ultimately even though I'm pretty chill, I'm also quite controlling, and I worry about a lot of things. And there's something about project management that activates all of my deepest worries, and I wasn't able to sleep at night. Like I don't know, something about it, something about being in a bigger agency. I found like I felt lost, and I felt like I wasn't able to like make sure that this creative would turn up to the meeting on time. And what if this account person threw in some feedback, and then therefore my resource would slip, and then I wouldn't be able to make the deadline, and then I'd go over budget. I found it quite stressful. So therefore, when the opening for studio manager came up, I carefully, because I still needed a job, and I really loved everyone I worked with, I just didn't love the work. So when that came up, I put my hand up, and thankfully my manager at the time was like, yeah, you'd be absolutely great. I was surprised because she said I was a very good project manager, even though I died on the inside every single day. But maybe, yeah, that was what made me good. But I became a studio manager, and yeah, I think that it was basically, for me, it was this sidestep from, of course, as a project manager, you care about the people, but your focus is for me, it was, having to deliver the project on time and on budget. That was kind of my main remit. And I found that the switch to being a studio manager was all about caring about the people. And I felt a lot more excited about that. And I felt like if I could, if the people felt like they were being taken care of, then the best work would come. So it was sort of, it was just like a different, like a little flip that just sort of sat better with me. And yeah, I didn't look back project management after that. It was, definitely the right career thing to do.
I love that. I love that focus on people. You're right. I mean, when you're a project manager, like delivery is the main accountability. Whereas when it comes to a more operational role, you really are taking care of the people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that like I wasn't that sad to say goodbye. Like the thing I liked about project management was like the little sort of like fame bit of it. Like I liked my last project that I managed was a suite of digital banners for O2, Samsung, and Take That,
wow.
the banner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge. So I really liked like seeing that campaign on the side of a bus, even though I did all the digital stuff for it. And it was really cool getting to go to Wembley Stadium to like see Take That, which like that didn't happen for all. But I was willing to say goodbye to the very, very, very rare Take That concerts, just in exchange a little bit better every single day about what I was being, effectively paid to do. It just was absolutely a like no-brainer for me.
I like that. Leaving a bit of the glamour, but finding a better fit.
Yeah, I don't know. It just, just a better fit for me.
There you go. All right, let's give our listeners some bearings here. So First of all, we're going to dive into resourcing. You and I, we use that word every day, but just for folks listening, just in case they use a different word or aren't familiar, what is resourcing and why is it important for any organization to do?
Yeah, sure. So resourcing, I guess, fundamentally, it's having a group of people of varying skill sets and effectively deciding what they're going to be working on every single day.
Planning people's lives for them.
Yes, working day, not weekends. Yeah. But so what it's about, it's about, making money for the department. And it's about, making sure that you don't have too many people sitting on the bench at any one time, especially if you need to bring in freelancers. It's about looking as far in advance as you can to see if there's going to be any pinch points coming up. If there are pinch points, seeing if you can move things around. If there aren't, making staffing decisions around either freelance hires or, maybe we can hire a permanent person. But for me, the most interesting part of it is keeping people from burning out, pairing skills to tasks. So understanding what people, objective-wise, what they need to do to sort of keep themselves interested in their career. Looking out for cool opportunities for them to, continue doing whatever they are interested in doing, and really factoring the needs of the individual and keeping them engaged. Understanding that maybe guy X, he has to leave at 4:30 every day to pick his kid up, and being okay with that. So, moving things around, being flexible, and making sure that the work fits around him or her, and not the other way around. It's really, for me, it's the most interesting if you really, give a shit about the people and you care about them and you've taken the time to understand them. And it's not just Tetris. I think some people refer to resourcing as Tetris, and it is a little bit, especially if you look at a good resourcing schedule, but it's not just that. You could have a development team and you have 2 days of tech that needs to go in, but actually the only guy who's available, he can't build in the resourcing requirement that you have. He can't build in that type of technology. So it's just figuring out what you can do to move things around to make that work.
I like the sort of multi-layer aspect of things. On one layer, it's pairing people with what they can do. On another layer, it's pairing people with the thing that they want to do. And then also the other human considerations, that building life around work life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also sometimes about, having those chats with people that sometimes there's going to be a little bit of a crappy time where they're going to possibly have to do the things that they don't really want to do, because we all have to do sometimes the things we don't really want to do because we are being paid to go to work, not to play. If you can have as much fun at work and enjoy the vast majority of the things you get to go in and be paid for every day, that's awesome. But sometimes, you have to do things that aren't so great. And I guess being able to have conversations with people, because I think we all have it in us to get in a little bit of a funk. And, just recognizing that sometimes people maybe need to have a little bit of a time to air those grievances and feel safe to be able to do so.
Okay, loaded question. What's the key to resourcing and running a successful studio? Tell us your secrets.
Well, ideally you will be blessed with a team of people who are very happy to be there, and you won't have to do anything to reinforce that. But I think that the happy studio is a super important thing. So sort of before anything, I guess, working on like what is it that's going to make the people who you work with, happy to be there. But besides that, I've found that it makes a lot of sense to have a set rhythm to the week. So work out, how you need to resource, what are the key days to do certain key meetings, and just like have a certain process and structure to, the way that you and the wider team need to work in order to make sure that, the rest of the team are booked on the right jobs at the right time. And, we've got enough time to make those resourcing decisions. So yeah, having a good schedule to your week, I think, is important from a kind of resourcing point of view. And yeah, like building on that, kind of having some kind of systems in place. So, I think we'll probably get onto this later, but it doesn't have to be like a very advanced resourcing, IT system, but just like some way to keep track of all your resources, to keep track of all your requests, just some kind of structure there to help, people make sure that they've got the right thing happening at the right time.
That's totally fair. And like, it's funny because that is the piece that is anxiety inducing for me about your job, which is this like sprint over sprint over sprint. Legitimately, you've got 5 working days to figure out next week. That could be staffing. That could be shifts in project timelines. That could be shifts in priorities. And there's only so many hours in a day. There's only so many options, and you have to get it all solved by the following Monday. So yeah. I hear you about having a solid rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely a solid rhythm. I mean, that's the thing. I think a solid rhythm, and also like a solid way of like, this is how I will accept your resource requests. Do it this way, please. And I will talk you like, if it's a new project manager, whatever, taking the time to talk them through how things are done in your studio, or your agency, or however you work, so that they understand that if they need resource, not just to, and this might work for some people, but for me, it hasn't. Like, please don't just grab me in the hallway. Please don't just send me an email or send me a Slack. Like, if there's, 25 producers, I guess I can't keep on top of things. So, for us, we had like a Google form, and all the requests would have to go through that Google form. And that way, all of the questions that we needed to have answered were there. So we'd have like a to-do list to work through, rather than, having to field them in every single different way. But I think just little things like that, to just like help streamline things, are really useful.
There's literally no time for anything to slip through the cracks. Like, that's how rapid the sprints are, and that's how high the urgency is.
Oh yeah. No time whatsoever. So that's why, like, if you run a tight ship, which, I believe in deeply, then, things won't slip through the cracks, provided everyone knows, that that's how they need to do things so that they can get the resources that they need. Because, the researching team has said, we want to help you. We're here to help you out, but you need to help us out by filling in the form.
Mm-hmm. And just to kind of put this into context for folks, like, we're talking about a large agency here. For example, I mean, what was the average number of projects happening at once, and sort of what is the average project team size, and how many projects are people working on at once, and how many resources are getting shared across different projects?
Yeah, so the agency I spent my most time at was an agency of about 1,000 people worldwide. The vast majority of those were in London. I think about maybe 800 people in London. The digital studio was about 100 people by the time I left. I'd say about 75 of those were resourceable people. So people who, were booked on projects. Within that, we also would bring on freelancers. Often, like, there would be, I don't know, at minimum, usually 5 to 10, sometimes more freelancers across all the skill sets. Job wise, I guess like between 75 to 100 jobs at once of all sizes. Some of those would be, a couple day long little production jobs, maybe just doing some little social posts or a little digital out of home animation or something that will be, in and out within a week. Other jobs would be multiple months, like a, big design system for, a big telecoms client or something that would have multiple people on it. So I guess the smallest jobs would maybe have within Digital Studio, probably could be as small as, could be as small as 2 with a digital project manager as well. So 3, and then could get all the way up to 20 people for some of the bigger ones. But then we had the wider agency as well. So there would always be an account person or above the line creatives or a strategy person or something, maybe someone from the social department. There are lots and lots of different departments all working together. So yeah, it could get pretty big. Yeah.
How about concurrence? Like, is there how many things is one person generally working on at a time? I mean, I know that the sort of scale can be different as well, but
yeah, it really depends on the type of the jobs that are going on in the studio, but also the type of person or resource, if you want to refer to them as their robot name. So we had discipline leads. So those guys would and girls would be across multiple jobs at once. So they could be across like 15 jobs, but they were never operating as the production people. So they wouldn't ever sit down for 2-3 days at a time, heads down designing something. They would be leading the people who were. So they spent most of their times or their time in and out of meetings and overseeing other more production designers or developers. And then the more kind of like production focused people would maybe 2 to 3 max jobs. We would try not to spread people too thinly, and always everything that was resourced or scheduled in would have had conversations with the discipline leads to make sure that we were putting aside enough time and the skill sets matched and all that stuff. But sometimes there would be like one crappy day where a nice juicy chunk of work fell out or was postponed for a couple days. So therefore they ended up having like a bunch of amends across 4 or 5 different jobs come in. But that would hopefully be a rarity. We didn't like to have many days like that. But sometimes, just what the projects need, you got to have a bitty day.
You gotta have a bitty day. I like that. And I guess, when it comes to like flexibility, we talked about having a really good system. And I think maybe some people are listening thinking, okay, well, that sounds pretty rigid. And maybe it has to be that rigid in order for things to work. But what is your philosophy when it comes to scheduling resources and like changes as they come in and just life happening? Like, are you machine or are you more dancer?
Yeah, full dancer. Full dancer. I really bang on a lot about processes and systems and all that stuff because I believe that if you have those things in place, it helps you be more flexible. If that makes sense. Like it's basically not everything is flying at you at all times. The vast majority of things, you're able to process through and deal with and allocate effectively and all that stuff, which means that when something comes at you on a Friday, which is you've like beautifully lined up 4 UX designers to start on Monday, that you've had to work with recruiters and you've placed them and they're all ready to go. Then someone comes on Friday afternoon and says, hey, really sorry, but the project's not going to be ready until next Wednesday. It means that you can deal with that. So, do what you need to do. Can they be reallocated, work on some other billable work? Can we push back the start date of the contracts? Are we just going to have to, suck up the cost, and therefore can the client, take that hit for at least a couple days? Like what can be done? So like flexibility, always, always, always. Things are going to change constantly. And a resource person's job is just to deal with that. And it's all fine. It's just part of it, It's, yeah, you just, things always change. And that's kind of what, it keeps it interesting. Yeah.
I love that. I love the notion of having the system so that you have the bandwidth to do that on the fly problem solving, which you seem to enjoy.
Yeah, I do. It's very stressful. It doesn't always feel awesome. And sometimes you think like, oh no, everything's going to crumble, but then it always gets sorted, somehow. And, then you have a nice rush of, hey, we did it. It's cool. Now we can have a nice weekend. Yeah.
Maybe you just are damn lucky.
No, I don't know. I don't think so. There's been a lot of these, a lot of these. It's not just luck. It's basically
it's skill.
Like,
it's skill.
Yeah. It's not so much skill. It's just talking to people, and there's a lot of people to talk to, and I guess like having those little rules in place, like, if a producer has to pass on the news that the client's not quite ready to go. So therefore, like, can we push back the start of resource? But they told us yesterday, for example, that everything was totally signed off, everything's completely ready to go. Therefore, we've booked in these freelancers, and they've said no to other contracts because they're going to come and start work with us. Like most people are pretty reasonable. So if we aren't able to move them around on other projects, and with a busy studio, there's very often the ability to like move things around and fill up people's time. But if we can't, and they've said no to other work, we can talk to them and say, hey, really, really sorry, but like this has come up. But if they're in a pickle and the other contracts can't take them, like it's only right for us to, see if the client will cover that notice period or something. So if they have to pay for a day of someone's time, people are usually pretty reasonable and understanding. Like we're there to make money. We're not a, charity to suck up the cost of, miscommunications or mistakes or whatever. Like that stuff totally happens, but
and people are working to live, and I love that. That like I've worked in places where that would be well over and above. Like, oh well, we don't have this job ready for this contractor, but that's just part of being a contractor. So sad. Sorry, we're gonna move on with our lives. But I love that, like the trigger of just being like, let's see if the client will cover it, because most people are reasonable, and people need to live their lives. And I think in my books that is it's a nice humanity to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that also like there's something like I don't want to mess people around. Like I don't want to screw over someone because like good people are good people, and I want that freelancer to want to come work with us. I want because they're good, and they've worked with us before, and like they're awesome, and everyone loves them, and their skills are top notch. Their rates are reasonable, all that stuff. I want them to want to come back to work with us. But I also kind of like, I don't know if this is selfish, but it's sort of like it's also like a bit of like an agency, like a personal studio PR thing. Like I want people to say nice things about working with us. Like I want our reputation to be one of taking care of our people, our perm people, and our freelance people. And so kind of like everything that I think needs to be done for resourcing or for ops ties into that. It's just, it's just the right thing to do. And yeah.
It's a huge point that you mentioned. I don't think it's selfish. I think it's good business because I've seen it happen where agencies build a reputation amongst contractors where people are like, stay away. And then you can't get the talent. And then you don't have, recurring, reliable, consistent work from people who keep coming back to work on other projects and sort of become a part of the team. And then you just have this revolving door of people who just, didn't get the memo. And versus all the people who, that have the right talent that are avoiding you because, well, word on the street is that you don't take care of your people or whatever. So
yeah, and it's just not. It's just not.
Smart.
No, it's not. It's not worth it. It's not nice. Like we all have to work, or choose to work or whatever. We have our different reasons for working, but I think like making it as nice as possible for everyone just like makes the days feel better. So I've been very lucky to work at places where they have the same values. I know that I've heard that there are some places where they don't, and I hope to never come across them in my own working life. But yeah, I think that's like, you gotta care. You gotta give a shit. You gotta treat people nicely.
I like that. I love that. All right, let's dig into the juicy stuff. Let's talk about ways of working. Now, you touched on it earlier. Twice we were talking about team members as resources, their robot name, and we were talking about just different like life structures. When people have to pick up their kids from daycare, people who might need to start a little later, and these sort of different nuances that need to make it that need to work for people in order for them to do their work. So I had it here. I said, we are often tempted to refer to team members as resources, but the reality is that they are autonomous, living, breathing human beings that have different needs, motivations, working styles, efficiencies, weaknesses, etc. So I thought we could dig into that a little bit more. How do you account for different ways that people work? For example, I had developers who would only want meetings in the morning so that they could go heads down in the afternoon and just code. I've had UX architects who only want to work on 2 projects in a given day. So if they've got 3, then that third one has to go to another day. What is your approach to different ways of working?
Yeah, I mean, I think that something sort of has to happen for everyone if they decide to work in any capacity, whether that's in a freelance capacity or a perm capacity, and they've decided to become an employee of an agency or a company. We all need to kind of bend and flex a bit on how we prefer to work, and just kind of like, look at what is best for the wider team. For example, myself, I'm a really, really big procrastinator, which is not my proudest feature, and it is a lifelong struggle. But I believe that I do my best work when there's a fire under my ass, not literally. Mm-hmm. But I like it if I can basically just like work out of hours and just like do my thing. That feels best to me, and that's how I've always been, like, ever since I was in school. But in reality, that is not how a team needs to work. Like I need to every day basically like fight against that and work in the time that everyone else is working, because I need to talk to them all day. Like I need to get information, to make decisions, to do my job. So, there's a little bit of flexibility there for me as well. But I think in saying that, there's also there's truth to sometimes days can just be absolutely filled with meetings. So it is worth trying. What you touched upon with your dev friends. We at my old agency, we did try to do. I think it was like the first 2 hours of the day would be meeting free, so everyone could just have head down time. there are some people whose jobs are basically to just like be in meetings all the time. Producers are absolutely one of them. But then they wouldn't have time to write their scopes of work. So like, let's set aside this 2 hours. I think that could work at some places. For us, it didn't work because we were this integrated agency that had other departments that would tie in with us. Mm-hmm. But I think it is worth trying those kind of things to see what works for the team, for sure. I think in terms of like the only wanting to work on 2 jobs thing, that's an awesome aim. And that is like, I think people can be spread too thinly for sure. But I also think like if you're a UX person who has worked on 3 jobs over the past few weeks, and annoyingly, there are 3 tiny wireframe amends for each job has a set of amends that's going to take you like a couple hours max each, and they all fall in one day. It kind of means, sorry, buddy, please, can you do them? I think that if tasks are allocated and scheduled based on like a realistic estimate of the time that they're going to take, and that time is available in a day, you gotta do it.
It almost it comes back to what you were saying earlier about having a system so that you have flexibility. Again, setting boundaries and expectations, and yeah, that's the ideal. But sometimes, life happens. Everyone's going to have to be a little bit flexible. But if you can set those systems and boundaries, then at least there is a chance, or at least most of the time you can work in your optimal working situation. Sometimes there's going to be that meeting in the morning. Sometimes there's going to be those amends that come in and you have to work on 3 different jobs in a day. But for the most part, thinking through the way people work and having that as a consideration, and at least trying to fit that mold, maybe not always, but as often as you can.
Exactly. And I think that it's also absolutely worth understanding, like, why are people having troubles, or like, why is it a problem of having more than 2 jobs in any one day? And I'm guessing that's only a problem because the right time hasn't been put aside to do the tasks that are booked in. So it's just also like getting, under the hood of like what's happened. Why are you only down with 2 jobs in a day? And if actually ends up because that job that was supposed to take 2 hours actually took 6, then like that's a whole other conversation that needs to be had. So yeah, I think it's just kind of understanding where people are coming from, and addressing any concerns that they have, and trying to do something to kind of like make their days better.
And I think that's a really good point, in the sense that, in some cases it's going to be context switching, and context switching might take time. But if that's been built into the estimate of time, the allocation of time, a 15-minute job is rarely a 15-minute job. It's probably going to take you 10 minutes to get your head straight, get the sort of background material together, then do the 15-minute job. So if you're booking it in for 25 minutes, half an hour, then that might be the trick that gives people the headspace to context switch multiple times a day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also things like, making sure that whoever's briefing them in has like a briefing document that they've filled out. Like all the files are in the right place. If someone has to pick up work from someone else, like another UX designer, or architect, or whatever the titles are, it's like making sure that they've structured their files properly. So that's like goes across like how the whole agency needs to work, so that just everyone can do things as quickly as possible, because everything is done as efficient as possible.
I like that. Yeah. No, the systems. Absolutely. No,
yeah.
I like it.
Structure, naming convention. Love them.
Yeah. Being organized, making sure people are set up to be successful in whatever they've been asked to do that day. I like that, which I think maybe brings me to my next question, which is that a lot of our listeners, what they struggle with in terms of resourcing is granularity. it's kind of the big question mark is what level of detail does one need to go into to plan all the work? You know, are we going down to like a day by day, half day by half day, hour by hour, minute by minute? How deep does one need to plan in order to be successful at resourcing?
Well, I mean, I guess part of it depends on how you're paid from your clients. We didn't have a lot of retainer clients, like a few. We had some retainers near the end of my time at my last agency, but most jobs were paid project by project. So therefore, basically every minute need to be accounted for. We obviously wouldn't resource down to the minute because that is insane. But I think a good aim is down to the 30-minute or hourly slot. That is potentially a bit more work for project managers. But I think that thinking through like what a project actually needs is a good thing to do at the start, especially if it is a team of multiple people. So maybe that's like multiple designers or developers working on lots of different jobs. If there is a project that is maybe 2 days work initially up front, and then a day where there's nothing, and then the following day the client feedback comes in, like when is that client feedback going to come in? Is it going to come in like anytime, or is it best to assume that it'll be in by the afternoon? And when it does come back, how much time are we giving them? How much time did we estimate, in the project plan, but also the proposal? Like how much are they paying for? Because if they're paying for, and we think the project needs like a half day to, tweak anything on that initial first 2 days of work, let's book in the whole afternoon. And so, but if it's going to be less, and there's hardly anything that you could potentially change, a couple hours is fine. But what that allows the resource person to do is put in other jobs around that. So, it's going back to the kind of like, yes, it's Tetris, because it is like a resource schedule really does kind of look like Tetris. So you can call it that. But, it's fitting in the different jobs with the right people. So if we do have that, we know that we have that gap of time, and it's going to be definitely that morning is free. Like what other jobs can I fit in there? Yeah. So I mean, I am very much down to the, like, I love granularity, and I know that is, not always the case for everybody. But I found that in a busy studio, where we had lots of jobs going on, and some of those jobs were kind of bitty, granularity is good. But then at the same time, we had, lots of bigger jobs that would be run in sprints, and they would have the same person booked on them for, weeks or months at a time. And that time would be paid for and would be only booked on that particular job. So therefore, resourcing that was absolutely a breeze, because you just put the big block in and drag it for weeks. You don't even worry about it because, the producer's sorting all that stuff out. But yeah, I guess so it kind of depends on the project. But yeah.
No, it's interesting. I mean, there's almost two sides of the coin. There's, hey, Morgan, what should I be working on today? And for whatever it is that I'm working on, do we have coverage for it in terms of the cost? Because again, coming back to the notion that yes, it's about people, and yes, it's about profitability and utilizing the talent that you have on your team.
Yeah, exactly. Like what needs to be done. Hopefully what needs to be done matches up with what the person wants to be learning. But yeah, it's just constantly matching.
Coming back to granularity, something I get asked is, should managers account for internal meetings? You've got your project running so smoothly, nice good sprint cadence. Wait a minute, Friday is town hall, 8 hours of non-billable, non-project productive time. Whoops. How, to what degree are sort of those internal meetings factored into your resourcing plan?
Yeah, I mean, 8 hours. I would be pissed if an 8-hour meeting went in that wasn't
So suddenly
accountable.
appeared.
That is a crappy surprise. So yes, that should absolutely be in the resource schedule for weeks in advance. It should be in there. But there are lots of smaller ones that happen. Like we had Monday morning kickoff meetings,
Right.
studio team kickoff meetings, so not like project ones. That was about half an hour worth of time. That was not in the resource schedule, but everyone knew that it was in there. Because I think that there's some things where it can just get a little bit too. Because I do say I am all about the granularity, but then also I don't put all the internals in. So I think that it's a little bit of a everyone if it's in everyone's diaries and they see that, okay, today I know it's Monday, so I have this half an hour thing to start the day. That's usually okay. There'll usually be maybe once every 2 weeks, possibly, a discipline team meeting. Maybe that's okay. Usually that's okay. But it is also down to kind of like the person, the resource, to flag if they are absolutely flat out and they can't attend. So it's sort of, we just kind of banged on about that a lot. Like, look at your diaries, flag if there's any problems with like you attending this meeting or whatever. It is probably easier to put absolutely everything in the resource schedule, but it sometimes can be a little bit micromanaging diary-ish. So, but saying that like I said, I'm all about granularity. So yes, I'm just going to say absolutely everything in the resource schedule. Sorry, that was a very long-winded way to say that. But yeah, I just think it's easier if you just put everything in. Yeah, it just means that everyone can see what's going on. And also it means that, for the resource person, when they're booking that thing in, they can say to the discipline lead and the producer, hey, there's a design team meeting happening this day. Do you think that's still going to be fine for that designer to still handle this amount of work in any one day? And then they can say yeah, or they can say, well, actually, no, it's going to be a really, really busy day. Can we please book in the first 2 hours of the following day? So yeah, put everything in, please.
I mean, so much hinges on, and I think the important thing you said is that having enough information to have the conversation and having those conversations. And having those channels available and having people feel comfortable to have those conversations, for someone to raise their hand and say, listen, I think that's going to be a problem if I'm going to have this internal, departmental meeting that day and my deliverable is due at the end of the day. Like, I think this is going to cause some friction. Whereas, there are a lot of folks that I've worked with that are like, yeah, don't micromanage my day. I can go to a meeting and I can still get my work done. That's just part of work for me. And that's like their different style. But I think having the opportunity or creating a culture where you can have those conversations and that dialogue is, I think, what is the thing that kind of keeps coming back in this conversation, which is that, yeah, we need to be talking to one another. We need the systems, we need the processes, but we need to keep it human as well, because, at the end of the day, we all need to get along. We all need to get work done together. Yeah,
completely. And I think, yeah, you're totally right that, not everyone wants to be micromanaged, but, it's just like giving them, if they have all the information up front and they know that they can say, if something like doesn't sit right with them, they know that invite's been in their diary for 2 weeks. They can put their hand up at any time, and we can move things around. It's really no big deal. So yeah, I guess just empowering people to be able to do that, and sort of kind of respecting the different ways of working and different styles, but also respecting that projects change. Like sometimes there'll be a day's worth of work, but really it's like going to be super chill, and that one designer is probably going to absolutely fly through it because he did the same one last time. But the same other day of work is like it's a day of work, but it's like an intense day of work. So it's just having all those chats, working out what's needed and what isn't. Is it really essential that this person goes to that meeting? If they are having a really rammed day, and like probably not, it's probably fine. And I think that also we had different types of people, resources. So the discipline leads stroke managers, pretty much all their days anyway were meetings, but we would still schedule in those things just so that they would know ahead of time, what their week was going to look like for internal as well as client meetings, project meetings.
We've been talking a lot about the systems and the stress around a busy agency with lots of jobs and lots of things happening, maybe sometimes too much work. But what about the flip side of the coin? We talked about having folks on the bench. How do you keep up the morale of folks who find themselves sort of not working on a project or waiting for feedback to come in? All of their peers are doing stuff. They're busy and they're kind of sat there. Maybe they've been given that busy work project for the time being. How do you kind of keep them engaged?
Well, I mean, for us in the past, and I think this is also the same, with the agency that I'm at now, as well, always having a list of internal projects that need to get done. So it could be a show reel. It could be we want to do this like proactive piece for this client. It's not billable, but it is still important. There's training opportunities as well. Like maybe learning a new After Effects plugin would be really cool, and that's part of someone's objectives. So having put in the time and the thought to basically make sure that people know if you have downtime, first let resourcing know if we don't know about it already. And then also know your own objectives, things that you can work on. But also for us, it's, having that list of things that would be really cool to get done that there's never time to schedule in. Like it's, I think it's the same with every single agency. Like our own internal work always goes on the back burner. It's always the first thing to shift. Yeah, because no one's paying us for that. But if we have this surprise day of a designer, to do something really cool, like that would be awesome. And if that really cool thing also ties in with their objectives and they get to learn a new thing, that is also pretty cool. So yeah, I think that. And if someone seems really down because they've been on, maybe some not so cool work for a little while, because sometimes that does happen. You still got to get your bread and butter stuff done, and it can't all be super sexy. Just having a chat with them and, maybe having them shadow someone, or work alongside one of their leads, managers, just G them up, learn some cool new stuff, make sure to earmark them for the next cool project that comes in that fits, something that is in line with their objectives. Basically, to give a shit about them, and yeah.
I like that. It's like helping them find their balance.
Yeah.
What about some of the tougher decisions? Obviously, resourcing has a lot to do with staffing. Sometimes there's going to be underutilization. So, talk to me about what comes into play when making decisions about layoffs and furlough.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Sometimes there are tough decisions that have to be made. I think that a lot. Sometimes it'll just be down to, not just, but sadly, largely down to the clients pulled some work. Maybe they had a specific stream of work that required a specific person or set of skills, and they no longer need that anymore. So if that kind of thing happens, like, is there something else that the person can do and kind of pivot them into like taking on a different type of work? Can we drum up more of that type of work from other clients? Because, it sucks losing people. Like, it's not, no one wants to lose good people. They're hard enough to find. So keeping them around is really would be the best thing. But of course, everyone needs to be paid for within reason. I think that there's, sometimes technologies change as well. I don't know if you remember. I think it was like 2012 or something, and all of our banners were in Flash up until like August, and then they all switched to HTML5, and we couldn't get any, like, all the HTML5 banner developers in London were just taken. Like, we couldn't find anybody, and our Flash guys had to retrain and do like HTML5 crash courses. So like that's kind of a prime example of like people just needing to learn, needing to kind of like re-engineer their skills. But then I think sometimes there's also like there's the trickier ones, which is, sometimes hires just don't fit. They could have interviewed really well. Everyone gels super well, but actually in reality, like, it's just not a good fit, in terms of skill set or output or just like general attitude or sort of willingness to work. And that those are trickier conversations, but, they happen sometimes. But I think like always just being transparent and, having conversations with people and trying to like work out like what is there, because, it could be that like they're having a really hard time trying to like understand how a new place works. And that's a thing that sometimes you can lose sight of if you've, been going into the same place for years and years and years and everything just like, clicks. Right. So it's just like just taking the time always to understand where people are coming from and, if you can do anything to make it better for them. Yeah. And if not, then HR can help with some. Yeah. But it sucks. Like, no one wants to do that stuff. Yeah. It sucks. But it happens.
Oh, but it's nice that you create these layers. I mean, some things that stand out to me is, okay, you've got people on the bench, but if you've built your system right, you have some briefs organized for internal projects and they can start working on that. There is training. There is retraining if there's been an industry shift. There's conversations about, are they fitting in with the workplace? You said something to me in one of our conversations where, people aren't resourcing individuals. You're resourcing, a role so that you don't necessarily have these people who just never get, invited onto a team. And yet sometimes that underutilization could also reflect somebody who might not be fitting in. And again, having those conversations to make sure that they are set up for success before it's a conversation about, okay, well, maybe it's not working out.
Yeah, completely. Like, yeah, I mean, you're right. We did talk about that. Like, people would sometimes request a specific designer who was like their favorite, but resourcing was always very quick to go, no, you will request, if you want that type of person, you can request a senior designer, and then we will speak to the right people to figure out which one who works on your project. Because it's not like picking teams in baseball, and everyone needs a chance to work on the good stuff. So yeah, it's you gotta be fair. That's a resource person. Like, they have to think about lots of different things when it comes to resourcing. It's not just who's available, it's also who's the right person for the job for so many different reasons. So yeah.
Yeah, like leave that as the responsibility of the person doing the resourcing rather than requesting that team that you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. Like we will worry
Trust.
about it. And it's like it's also kind of like, the relinquishing responsibility to us. Like, don't worry, PM, you don't need to worry about it. We and your discipline lead, so that's like your design tech UX lead, who's like the manager, we will make sure that you have the absolutely right person for the job. We will not give you someone who sucks, because no one sucks. Like, everyone is awesome. And if it's their first time working on this type of work, we will make sure that they have the right support in place to do the best work that they can do. And your project will be great, and it will be delivered on time, and it will look fantastic, and everything will be fine. Do not worry.
I like that. Yeah, you set them up to rock it. Nobody sucks. I like that. Let's lighten it up a bit. Let's talk about tools versus techniques. So I know a lot of folks in our community. Yeah, let's go from very dark to, I don't know. Let's just talk about software. I know a lot of folks in our community, they're always looking for the right resourcing tool. They're looking for something that works the way that their organization works. Usually, it's like looking for a unicorn. So I thought I'd ask you, software, does it make a difference, and what's worked well for you in the past and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely does make a difference. I think you are totally right that it is like finding a unicorn, and the dream system is one that ties together your finances, your timesheets, your resource request, and your resource schedule, your project management software, so you're putting together your timelines, all of that stuff. I have not found it. So I have both at my old agency and at my current one, I love Float. Float is great for me. It's super easy for everyone to use. There's different kind of like levels of use. So I can pull reports. There is a timesheeting function if you want to use timesheets. We don't. We are quite a small team, so we can sort of like, we have systems in place. We have meetings that we do to basically look at the past week and tweak what we put in to basically make sure that it reflects the time that was actually done. But if there was more of it, we would use timesheets. At my old agency, we had a very big finance system, which was, I think, quite good for finance, but really not so good for resourcing and project managers. So we would need to check that anytime we put in a resource booking to basically see if there was money on the job, because it pulled in from timesheets. I like that Float, like I can just put in our overall budget, from which I take from our proposals at the agency I'm at now. And when I need to put in, say, like, on Thursday, we'll be putting in work for the week ahead. If I put in like, half a day of someone's time, I can see if we're over, and if we're not over, like how much money we have left in our budget. That's really cool. I think for what at my larger agency, we took requests via Google Form, which I mentioned earlier. I think that was super useful, even though it was quite manual. Resource requests, it's never just 2 days of a designer, right? It's like, what does the designer need to do? What kind of skill set is it? What level of person? Is the job signed off? Do we have all the assets? Do we have the copy? What's the job number? When does it need to be delivered by? Like, there's just so many different questions. So I found that taking all those requests in a Google form, which then populated a spreadsheet, which we just monitored all day, every day. It resourcing was absolutely a full-time job. Currently at my current agency, it's not a full-time job, so I do lots of other things, which is also cool. But it's just having those little systems in place, which has helped us. So yeah, like I'm all about Float. It's great. They didn't pay me to say this, but I love them. I've used them for years. They're great. Like I think they're set up by ex Razorfish people, I think. So they're ex digital agency. I think ex. I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they've been really helpful with taking on my. I talked to them a couple of years ago about like, can you help me put some kind of requesting feature in there? And they took the time to talk to me about how that could be beneficial to our agency. And they're always rolling out new updates, like the timesheets thing. I didn't know about until because we weren't using it in my old agency. I didn't know about it until I rolled it out with this new one. But yeah, they're good. Everyone get Float. Yeah.
I like the, they're not paying me to say this, but everyone go buy a copy now.
Yeah.
No, but I like it. I like that it seems to be this balance between multifunctionality, like a tool that could do it all, and integratability. So like if you wanted to not use the finance function and can integrate it some way and make it work for you. Because I think that's what a lot of the folks I talk to struggle with. They struggle with making a piece of software work the way their organization does. And a lot of them just end up going to like a Google Sheet because it's manual. They can morph it. They can plug all their data in. Yes, maybe it's super manual, but at least they can start painting a picture of what system they might need.
I mean, which is, that is fine. We at my older agency, that's what we used that for quite a while. But then the big thing it was lacking was the ability to do reporting. I think that's the thing that any of the kind of like resourcing tools, and I know that there are lots of other ones besides Float, like Resource Guru exists, Harvest also, which I believe is also a finance system. But I guess like all of those guys, you can pull out reports. So like utilization reports are super key to just understanding, what's going on financially with the studio. And that's something that a spreadsheet, unless like maybe I'm just not good enough at Google spreadsheets, but I wasn't able to get those reports from them. So yeah, but if that doesn't matter to you, use a Google spreadsheet.
You just have a system and make sure it works and drives those conversations.
Yeah,
I like it.
Exactly. Because I mean, it was fine and it's free. You don't have to pay anything. So it's all right. It's like I just, I really like just knowing financially where a project's at, and I like, being able to get that information really quickly. And I can't from a spreadsheet.
Fair enough. Let's swing it back to the human side now. You were infamously bestowed a Employee of the Decade award, in addition to being described as best cheerleader, most organized, and most valued player. How do you keep a level head while managing all of this chaos? Because it does sound really intense, and yet the people that you work with seem to really appreciate the sort of passion and humanity you bring to it.
Oh, well, that's really nice. I don't know. I guess I just like everyone I work with, and I don't know. I want to do everything. Like everything that I do is all about like what's going to help these people who I work with, who I spend all my time with, who I really care about. And I want to make sure that things go well for them. So like, what are the things that I can do to make their days better? Whether that's like, I know that producer has like 15 jobs on right now, and I know that she's also really stressed because she's moving. So therefore, like, can I just make it super easy for her to like get what she needs resource wise? Can I like check in with her just to see that she's cool? And if I can, then brilliant. I just think, I don't know, I guess the secret is really just like I like being busy. I like there being lots of things happening at once. I have quite a short attention span. And I found that operations, you wear lots of different hats and you're constantly problem solving. You're constantly meeting new people and getting to know them. And I just kind of enjoy the buzz of doing all that stuff. Yeah, I just like people.
There you go. I like it. Yeah. No, I think that's good. Resourcing is as much about profitability and utilization as it is about caring about the people that you work with and making sure that you are creating a culture that is enjoyable to go to every day or dial into every day, I guess, in this reality. No, I think that's an important takeaway for folks. Like, there is a sort of robotic reputation that resourcing has. That it is Tetris, that it is scheduling, and it is just logistics, but really it's about people's livelihoods.
Yeah, 100%. It's it is not just I think it is also like the thing that makes it infinitely interesting for me is that it is all about the people. It's not just like, how can I fit this chunk of work into this block of blocks? It's about the people. Everything's about the people.
Morgan, just to round us out here, I wanted to ask you one question. I wanted to ask, what advice would you give to a digital project manager taking on operations responsibilities? What's the first step to making resource scheduling something that you can do in your sleep and also enjoy?
Yeah, sure. So I say, figuring out the kind of process that you need to follow to get the right information from everyone at the right time within as much notice as you can to basically like build that resource plan is super key. Having some kind of like administrative system, whether that's through Google Sheets or Forms or like something like Float or something like that. I think that's really key. So you have everything all in one place, especially if you're doing that as a kind of side job to being a project manager, because doing both is quite tricky. I did both for a time, and I hogged all the research for myself. So I think, like that's not the best way to do it at all. I think just like working out what's going to make your time in resourcing the easiest is super key. And also just the biggest thing is getting to know who you're working with. Like, this everyone's personalities, how they like to work. Figuring out who you can lean on for getting super important information about like skill sets and speed of working and all that. Because I think the thing that ops and project managers have is that they do exist in these environments and they operate in these environments, with loads of people who do loads of different things, but it's impossible to be true discipline experts for any of those things. So knowing, that you have a kind of partner in crime that you can speak to for, ballparking amount of time needed for a designer to do a thing. And, if you're hiring, if you need to bring in a freelancer, so that they can look at that person's portfolio and make a decision on like, okay, that person's going to be the right person. Just like sharing the responsibility as much as possible, I think is super key. And I guess just making sure that you understand like what makes people get out of bed in the morning across all levels, and find a way to make work a happy place for them, even if it's just in the internet.
Yeah, it's been a weird year for sure. Awesome. Morgan, listen, thanks. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. I really enjoyed our chat. I love geeking out about resourcing. Hopefully folks found this useful as well.
Thank you. No, it was super fun. It's my favorite subject.
We may have you back. I know there's a lot we can dive into in resourcing, and I literally only scratched the surface because I know we had a lot of other questions that we could tackle as well. But let's leave it there for now. Let's give people a, temptation of a sequel.
Awesome. Well, you know where I am.
All right, guys. So what do you think? What hacks, tips, and tricks do you have up your sleeve for making sure that all your projects get the team resources you need? What works for you? What doesn't? Tell us a story. Have you ever had team resourcing fall through on your project? Have you ever gotten really spy versus spy, cloak and dagger, like with your other PMs to make your project a success? Or how have you been able to keep things civil? Tell us in the comments below. And if you want to learn more and get ahead in your work, come and join our tribe with the DPM membership. Head over to thedigitalprojectmanager.com/membership to access our experts forum, mastermind mentorship groups, our library of mini courses, our live mentorship sessions, Ask Me Anything sessions with a variety of experts, ebooks, templates, and more. And if you like what you heard today, please subscribe and stay in touch on thedigitalprojectmanager.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.